This episode contains unfiltered spoilers for the Wheel of Time book series. Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Rewind podcast. I'm your co-host, Dylan Stoll, and I'm joined as always by my friend, Michael Whifford.
Hey.
So today, we are going to go back in time to our roots and talk about the Wheel of Time a little bit here. And so for this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the book series Wheel of Time, something Mike and I are both quite familiar with, and something that we are both big fans of. And we are going to talk about some of the third tier and below characters from the book series that we really enjoy. We're going to do kind of a top 5 list, but we're not really ranking them within those top 5. We're just kind of like saying 5 that we like. So we're hoping to have a good time here, hoping that maybe we can get these characters more fans and see what we can do in the meantime and not try to snipe each other with these people.
So that'll be an interesting thing because we did not discuss who was on our lists.
Right. The one thing that we did talk about before we get into any of the content here was we talked about what makes a main character in the Wheel of Time. And so for this, Mike and I both agreed there's, of course, the Emond's Field 5, which are Rand al'Thor, Perrin Aybara, Matrim Cauthon, Egwene al'Vere, and Nynaeve Almira. Those are going to be our 5 top tier main characters in the Wheel of Time book series. We then also were like, what are the second tier characters? And so we included Alan Mandragoran, Moiraine Damodred, Elmindred Alfarshaw, aka Min, Fail Bashir Tebara, aka Fail, aka Fail. And then we have Elaine Trakand, and then Avienda of the Non-Valley Sept of the Tardad Aiel, and Siuan Sanche. And we are also including Thomdril Merlin, a.k.a. Tom Merlin, the Bard, the Gleeman, whatever you want to call him. We are including him in this list of secondary / third tier gray area characters.
And Loial.
Wow. How could we forget Loial?
I know.
So we're excluding all of those characters from our list of 5 relatively smaller scale characters that we're going to talk about and why we like them. And the reason is because all of those characters that I just named there all have their big fan bases, all have people that really like them a lot, and all have a good amount of chapters written from their perspective within the Wheel of Time series. Now, Thom Merlin may not have many chapters written from his perspective, and Loial has a smaller amount of chapters written from his perspective as well, especially once we get into the later half of the series there. But these are both characters that a lot of people are very familiar with, are around a lot in the book series, and have their own fan bases. So we are excluding them from our list of 5 people. Now, before we get into who our 5 characters each are, I'm just going to go through the reminders here. And that is, if you'd like to contact the show, you can do so by getting at us on social media. On Twitter, we are at Fantasy Rewind. On Instagram, we are Fantasy Rewind Pod. And if you'd like to send us an email, you can do that at the Fantasy Rewind Podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear your ideas for what you might want to see featured for an episode, whether it be from the Wheel of Time, from Lord of the Rings, from any other fantasy or sci-fi series. We haven't delved too much into sci-fi yet, but that is a direction we're going to go eventually. So whatever you guys would like to see, or hear rather, let us know. Alright, so Mike, before we get into this Wheel of Time thing here, I do want to talk real quickly about the Rings of Power for 1 second, because I can finally say something positive about this show that I'm excited about, and I want to say this. So, how did you think of the orcs? I thought they were amazing.
Yeah, I might disagree with you on that.
Oh no.
I was seeing them, and I just like, I don't know. It looked so. I couldn't put a finger on it, but it just wasn't. It wasn't something that clicked with me just yet. I'm not saying they're terrible or anything like that, but it just like I saw all the pictures, and I just didn't vibe with it. I have to go back and look at them again, but yeah, I meant to talk to you about that before actually, because I was like, I don't know if I like that.
Oh man, see, I actually thought they were done really well. Like, they're by far my favorite thing I've seen about the series so far, and like I think a lot of that has to do with them being more practical effects as opposed to CGI. Now they may lay CGI over top of these practical effect images we're seeing, but at the same time, it's one of those things where they have this gigantic budget, and I'm interested to see like where they spend it, because so far that series has been causing some trouble in my mind as far as like what I'm expecting of it. But alas, we have differing opinions on this one, and that's cool with me. I'm still interested to see how this shakes out when they release the show. I'm assuming Rings of Power will be released episode by episode on a weekly basis. We'll find out once it actually starts airing towards the end of the summer here.
Yeah, and you know what? I just pulled up the pictures here, and I'm looking again at them, and I'm looking at them compared to the orcs they had in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I will say that, like, the facial structure there, like their facial features, they do look really good. I think maybe it's partially the outfits.
I can see that.
And how it does kind of differ from what we saw a lot in the Lord of the Rings. And, we do have to keep in mind that these are older, like pre-Lord of the Rings era.
There won't be any Uruk-hai.
Yes, there won't be any Uruk-hai. But I think on top of it, too, like the one, I think with the one that's the most, I disagree with the most is the one with the, like, shawl.
Yeah, that's the one that looks the weirdest to me. The one like it's running kind of with like the hood up and everything.
With the dual swords, yeah. Because it's very much very human. Which may be what they were going for there. I don't know, but...
Yeah, I'll be interested to see like if they do the whole Twisted Elves take on orcs. And that might be why they look a little bit more human or elven, maybe. But either way... Let's jump out of that little soliloquy and get into the main content for today, which is talking about 5 underappreciated characters in the Wheel of Time. So, Mike, I'm going to give you the first character to talk about here.
All right, so I'll go from my 5th one all the way to my first one. So
we are ordering them now. Okay, so yes. All right,
I might as well.
We'll do that.
Well. And if I get yours, then yours on top of it, then
I'll just comment on why I like them.
All right, so I was really debating on this one as a whole, and I do have the group later on. I think I do have the group later on, but number 5 for me is going to be a member of the Forsaken.
Okay, nice.
So it would be Asmodean.
Okay, Asmodean.
Asmodean, yes. Sorry, Asmodean. Asmodean, yes, the pronunciation's right there in front of my face. And the reason I wanted him a little bit more is we got like just a little brief glimpse of him teaching Rand, and I would have liked it if they stretched that part out more and you got more of like a teacher
more of a Yoda moment.
Yeah, more of a Yoda moment, I suppose. Also, too, it would have been really neat for him to continue to make comparisons of this age and what he was used to. Because he was very different from the other Forsaken. And that was one of the reasons why I picked him out, was because he didn't go for power to crush my enemies because I'm a great warrior. Like, no, that wasn't his motivation at all. And it would have been really neat to see more of that and more of maybe his story in turning to the dark.
I like that pick a lot, actually, because Asmodean has always been somebody who I felt like he got ended way too abruptly. Like when he's killed, you don't even know who kills him until like the last book. the final book is Memory of Light, and you don't find out his killer is Semarog, right? Or was it Grendel?
Grendel.
You don't find out it was Grendel that kills him until the very end of the series.
I know.
And I always thought, like, Asmodean reminded me of, like, Tom Maryland turned to the dark side.
Yes.
And that was really cool, because obviously, like most readers in The Wheel of Time, I love Tom Maryland. So, like, seeing, like, his shadow version with Asmodean just kind of plucking away on his like, lute or harp, or I forget what instrument he used exactly, but all, like, the sad songs Rand makes him play and that, like, show his tortured soul and everything, especially once Lanfear limits his power and makes him, like, super weak so that Rand can learn from him, but Asmodean couldn't, like, betray Rand and, like, try to kill him or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you see Asmodean captured, he starts to kind of turn back to the light, insofar as that he fulfills his role as a teacher. He goes and, like, defends Rand at some points from Shadowspawn, and I do like him. As far as the Forsaken goes, he's a very interesting character. Alright, sitting at number 5 for me, I'm going to go with somebody that we've actually seen portrayed on the series so far already, actually. And that is going to be Uno. And Uno, one of the reasons I like Uno a lot, as far as, like, my 5 underappreciated characters, is because of the comedy relief that Uno brings. Every time you see him, he's always, like, bloody this, flaming that, and then when he's in the presence of Elaine, he's always trying to, like, crush his cursing, and, like, gets so frustrated that he just, like, turns purple from, like, trying to hold his curses in so much, and he just provides some really great comedy relief there. And I always like when you see, like, the old school, like, Wheel of Time cursing as well. I think that's really fun in the book series. And I also really like how Uno does, like, kind of fulfill that protector role for Elaine and Nynaeve and even Egwene, I think, when they are leaving Falma there after all of that goes down and everything. And I do like how he takes that on, and just he later, like, leaves his post from being a Borderlander, basically, and being a part of the Borderlander army to joining the White Tower army. And a lot of that is because of his loyalty to the women that he protects and oversees. And yeah, he's just a very cool, very mellow character with some flavorful language that I like.
He is such a refreshing character for me, especially as I'm reading. And I think you hit it right on the head there. Like, his use of just the humor he brings is just so great. And it would be really cool to also hear maybe some stuff from his perspective, like when him and the group of Shannarans, who defected once Rand kind of pronounced himself as a Dragon Reborn, it would have been cool to get kind of their adventure a little bit more outside of just seeing him once, when Rand left, and then all of a sudden they pop back up. I think it was when Perrin or Mat were in Ghealdan.
Yeah, so they found him again when Masema was the prophet and everything, and that whole prophet business is a little weird and not my favorite part of the series.
That was a chunk that kind of goes in with the whole Perrin and Fael and all that, and I'm usually just like, let's get through this.
Yeah, and, like, I want to keep this episode positive, but I'm going to go out and say this, though. Perrin could be eliminated from the series and I'd be 100% fine. Just, like, his whole storyline. Probably an unpopular opinion, but that's okay.
I don't think it would have. I think maybe you've said this before, but I don't know if it would have changed much of what happened in the books.
Right.
Unfortunately.
All right, so Mike, who do you got for us at 4? Yeah.
My number 4. So my number 4 is Varen.
Oh, very nice. Good. I was hoping you would pick her because I left her off my list on purpose.
I actually have quite a few channelers, but that's just how it kind of how the cookie crumbled, I guess. But Varen is just such an interesting character. One, you never really get a whole lot of her backstory. You get little bits and pieces here and there, but she was such a integral part of the series. But she only pops up, here and there, and you only get maybe like one chapter from her perspective or two. And I know we said spoilers at the beginning, but you find out later that she's a dark friend. She kind of gives her reasoning why it all happened and how it all happened. But it would have just been really neat to see more of the inner workings of her being a dark friend. And I know the reason they didn't do that was to keep that a secret until, it was revealed.
And what a reveal it was.
It was. I mean, it is still one of the biggest shockers from the entire series. Actually, it probably is the biggest shocker for the entire series. But I think it would have been really neat for us to get more of her perspective throughout the series. So then when we got there, it would have even been more of a punch in the gut. Whereas, we like her as a side character. We don't necessarily trust her because the boys don't trust her. And even though it always seems like she's helping them, from our perspective, it would have been neat to see maybe some shadiness, I guess, or some things to just lead us to question. But that, I digress.
Yeah, no, I love your pick of Varen there, and like I said, I left her off my list on purpose. She wasn't in the excluded character list for me, but she was somebody who I was like, I'm really hoping Mike takes her, so I want to talk about other people. And because Varen is probably my favorite Aes Sedai outside of the ones that are named here. And the reveal of her being a dark friend was just fantastic. And there were some breadcrumbs, but you have to really look for them.
Yes.
Looking throughout the series leading up to that reveal. And I just think, like you said, if there was some perspective of Varen leading up to it, you see the part where she almost poisons Cadsuane and decides not to. And you're like, whoa, what the hell is up there, Varen?
Yeah.
But I think that if you saw some of her thought process leading up to it all, it could have been an even bigger reveal, especially if, from her perspective, she was doing what she considered right. And the fact that she even got in bed with the Black Aja because she got caught by them and then was using it to her advantage, so cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of leads into something that never quite got settled for me. Is that, all these Black Aja members who failed to do what they were supposed to do got killed.
Yeah.
But what about her? I mean, she had to have done stuff for the Black Aja.
Right.
And so, how did she get out from, either being murdered or anything else? Because she was around Rand all the time. She could have done it. Stuff almost all the time.
Right, you see Grendel, you see... Oh my god, you see Masana, you see so many other of the Forsaken, sending these Black Aja members out after people. You see Mogadine especially, going after, Elaine and Egwene and Nynaeve. But they never send, at least to our knowledge, they never send Varen on any mission. So I'm wondering, if it's because she was, so low on their totem pole that they didn't even want to bother with her. But if that was the case, then, how does she go to, all these meetings and everything? Because I'm fairly certain that Varen's one of the Aes Sedai we see, in, those secret meetings that we see, with the Dark Friend Circle or the Dark Friend Social or whatever we want to call it. Yeah. I know Shiriam, I think, was one of the ones that was there. But either way, I think that it would have been a very interesting time to, see and learn more about Varen. Hell, even though she's dead, I'd be cool with, a Varen focused book about how she was spy master against the Black Aja, basically. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it could almost be a notebook, a diary type thing.
Exactly. That'd be really sweet. All right. So for me,
what's your number 4?
Number 4. So just spoiler alert, all of my characters are non-channelers.
Oh.
So it's gonna be a nice mix of channelers and non-channelers here. The guy that I have here at number 4 is Bail Domund. And so...
Oh, gotta love Bail. You went with Some really funny characters.
I was gonna say, you can tell I have like a type of character that I enjoy. But Bail Domon here, he starts off as the smuggler captain on the riverboat, piloting down the river to help Matt and Tom and Rand escape the Trollocs. And, you don't think anything of him. And then he shows up again later on, and you're like, oh, I know you. I wonder if that is you, Mr. Domon. And then he just morphs from there to become, this, really funny, really enjoyable character who, has this heavy Illianer accent, and, whenever I think of an Illianer, I just think of Bail Domon. And his beard that's, shaved above the lip, and everything, and so I was really excited to see him cast for the Wheel of Time TV series upcoming here, and the guy they cast for him actually looks really, really good for
I think a good casting choice.
Yeah, but going back to the book, Bail Domon, I really enjoy his time where he's working with Nynaeve, and when he first meets Lylwyn Shipless back before that's her name. When she's still a Guinan, and I still like that scene where he's kind of earning his way through the Seanchan and trying to not get murdered for being a smuggler. Later on in the book series, once him and a Guinan are married, and once a Guinan shifts into her Lylwyn Shipless form, I start to like him a little bit less. But I think a lot of that is because we just don't get more time with him, and what we do see with him towards the end, in Memory of Light, where I am right now, because I'm rereading the book series, obviously. Let's talk about that in other episodes. But in Memory of Light, when he's just hanging out at the Aes Sedai camp with Lylwyn, he's just a big brooding man, just not really doing too much. But mid to early book, Bail Domon is very enjoyable. I like that. I like him a lot. And I kind of liked the perspective we got from him, trying to barter for his life when he's first captured by the Seanchan. And, that part there is what really made me like Bail Domon quite a bit.
He is a really cool character. And he is such a neat progression in how he kind of weaves in and out of the story. And it really shows how the pattern kind of works around the Ta'veren. And I guess you could also make the argument that Nynaeve and was also Ta'veren. In the show, he kept, he kind of kept intersecting with her, was sort of the point I was going with there.
Yeah, well, that's kind of Moraine saying the wheel weaves, the wheel wills.
That's true. But he is a cool character, so. All right. Number 3 for me. Now, this one was a tough one. I was actually stuck between two people. Both of them are, one was a false dragon. The other one, though, was the dragon. And so I decided to go with the real deal. And that was Lews Therin Telamon.
Nice.
We get a lot of him, obviously, because he's in Rand's Head and he's Helena and all that all the time. And we get a little bit, in the first book, you get that whole little prologue with him and what happens to sort of set the stage. But it would have been really neat to get more a perspective from him even in Rand's Head, or in the Age of Legends, little sections where it was him interacting with other characters, and then how did that lead to different things down the line. Sort of connects with the Forsaken. We got more chapters where it was him and the Forsaken, and then this is how it led to them being where they were, because it kind of all seems to always tie back to him. And for someone who's so important, for us to have not such minimal information kind of about his past outside of the big events, I don't know. I want more.
See, I didn't even consider Lews Therin Telamon as a choice, because I kind of view him and Rand as one and the same. But I do see your point. I think it would be really interesting, if we would have gotten, like you said, some Age of Legend chapters that focused on what happened with Lews Therin Telamon in a certain situation, and maybe have that situation connect to something going on in the modern times here. It'd be a nice way to shoehorn how some of the Forsaken Demandred turned to the dark side. and everything like that. I do enjoy Lews Therin Telamon after he stops being a whiny little man about Elena, because later on in the series, like, you like hear him and Rand having full-on conversations between each other, and like when Lews Therin takes over and like springs up the Death Gates for the first time and just like goes berserk, it's really cool. I think that it definitely could have been a cool opportunity, and if they ever do like a Wheel of Time prequel book, besides New Spring, and go back even farther to the Age of Legends and show like cool. the assault on Shayol Ghul, how it failed, or like how the Forsaken came to the dark and stuff, that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3 for me, as far as like underrated characters or underrepresented characters, Davram Bashir is who I chose for this one here.
Oh, wow.
And so Davram Bashir is second in line for the Saldaean throne, behind the Queen Tenobia. He is Fael's father, and while I do not really like Fael that much, what I like about Davram Bashir is just like how he always seems to me to be almost like this lion, kind of like lurking and waiting for like his moment to strike. Because like when you first meet him and he encounters Rand and everything, there's a little bit of tension and everything, but then he quickly earns Rand's trust and becomes one of his most trusted generals throughout a good bulk of the series. And when you see like everything that he does as far as like training the Ashaman who washed out of the Black Tower to become the Legion of the Dragon, and like a army of like loyal Dragonsworn that's like actually trained. He's one of the great captains in the Wheel of Time series here. So he's put in charge of one of the factions during the last battle. I really like when like Rand is like in his dark brooding mode, and you see Davram Bashir just like chilling in a throne or chilling in a chair with like his leg up over the side, drink in his hand, just kind of lounging around, kind of laughing at the darkness of it all. And he just like kind of shifts from that to being like that focused arrow as soon as there's a time to fight. Like when he first sees Mazrim Taim, or however you want to say it, the Mahal, I guess, back before he becomes the Mahal. And he's like, I want to kill this guy. And he holds back because Rand's like, no, don't, I'm going to use him. And just his willingness to kind of follow orders and his willingness to be like loyal to the light and to the dragon is really cool. And I do like the moments that you see between like Davram Bashir, his wife, and like Perrin and Fael. That part is really interesting, especially when Davram Bashir gets Perrin alone and like kind of gives him like that father to "you're dating my daughter" talk. Although I guess Perrin married his daughter at that point. But still, I do like Davram Bashir quite a bit. I think that he is a very interesting character, and I kind of figured he wouldn't survive the last battle, and I mean, it's cool that he died, but he's still someone I did enjoy, and would have probably liked to see more.
Yeah, good choice. You know, I didn't even think about him, but he is definitely someone who you don't get enough of. Okay, so I kind of did a dual one for number 2, 2 for honor and 2. And it's funny, you kind of almost brought them up. You did kind of bring them up. So this would be the Mahal?
The Mahal?
The Mahal, whatever. Mazrim Taim and Logain.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to bring these two up is because, one, they were both at the Black Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a section of the books, like a location that we never really get that much of. We get some later on, but like it never feels like enough. It feels like almost an afterthought the entire time, even to Rand.
It does.
And I just feel like it was never done justice. And there was just so much they could have gone into there, like they did with the White Tower. They went over chapters and chapters and chapters in the White Tower where all this political intrigue and stuff. And, the Black Aja. But, you had the Black Tower being run by
A future Forsaken.
a future Forsaken who was turning people, and what it must have been like to do that. It would have been cool to have been getting into his head and his action choices. And I know part of that again was to kind of
surprise
reveal it.
Yeah, not a big
it wasn't
surprise.
really much of a surprise, you know. But it would have been really neat to get more of Logain in that situation too, and his eventual, you know, kind of counteractions to that and stuff. So that was number 2 for me.
I could not agree with you more on that part there. I almost put Logain down in my top 5 here. And a big part of that is because of what you said about the Black Tower. The Black Tower to me always seemed like, oh, yeah, I'm going to create this Black Tower. It's going to be so cool. And then I'm just not going to touch it for like 8 books.
Yeah.
And then I thought that was really weird that when we finally get to go to the Black Tower, our perspective is from Andral, who, like, we get mentioned, like, in a footnote, basically, leading up to Memory of Light, and then all of a sudden he has multiple chapters about him trying to rescue Logain and everything, and I do appreciate that we got some of that action in there, and that the Black Tower wasn't, like, this complete, like, red herring, but it had so much more potential. Like, if you got stuff from the perspective of Mazrim Taim, like, because I never trusted him as a reader. Like, from the very first time I read the series, going in there.
His oily smile.
Yes, yeah. Always seemed like a sleaze. And,
That's a great way to say it.
And I thought that he's totally evil. He's not going to, like, actually follow Rand all the way to the end, and he doesn't. But still, I would have loved to have seen more in the Black Tower, more, like, on the training of the Ashaman, maybe, of, like, Taim, like, going through the motions of pushing, like, a group of Ashaman through their, like, their attack training and everything, and then maybe having to, like, poison someone at the end there, because, like, there was lots you could do to cover intrigue at the Black Tower, and it all would have been very interesting, because it was just as tumultuous as anywhere else in that book series, and would have been cool to see more of.
And I would argue that it'd be more interesting than some of the stuff that happened with other people's perspectives.
150,000%.
Anyway, Dylan, who was your number 2?
My number 2 is Ruark of the Nine Valley Sept of the Tardad Aiel.
Good choice.
The character who got done dirty. And Ruark, to me, he is, like, the pillar of, like, what an Aielman should be. And, like, Ruark was so cool throughout all of the entire book series. He was, like, always there with Rand, with the other clan chiefs, and just, like, going through the motions of, like, following the Karakarn, going through there. He never wavered. He was always faithful to Rand, always led, and was always honest. Told Rand when he was being a fool. And just, like, Ruark there's nothing to not like about Ruark, in my opinion. And, like, the fact that we first get introduced to him on the rooftops in Tyr with Mat, and follow him from, I think it's book 3 until the very end of the series, and he never has a perspective, from, like, a perspective chapter in the entire series. But he's always there, always a part of the battles, and he's just somebody who gets done so dirty at the very end, where he, like, Ruark dying, the way that he died was so infuriating for me because of how much I liked him. And he just gets, like, his mind stripped away and becomes a mindless thrall at the very end of the book here. I think it is to Grendel, isn't it?
I want to say yes. It's been a while.
It's been a while. I'm not quite there yet. But it's one of the Forsaken turns Ruark into a mindless thrall when he's in Thakandar protecting Rand, and he's with Avienda, and then Avienda has to put him down, and, like, it's one of those things where he got done so dirty.
I know.
What are your thoughts on Ruark there, Mike?
I mean, I love Ruark. He's always been one of my favorite Aielmen. Like you said, he is a staple of their culture. This is how you should act. This is how you lead. This is what a leader looks like. And I think for Rand, that was such an important person for him.
Yeah.
So I think they were really trying to go for some shock value there when, he got turned into a thrall, this man who was so strong-willed and so intelligent. And then he had to get put down and...
No, just like even talking about him getting turned into a thrall is giving me goosebumps of the bad variety. And I'm just like, freaking Rhuarc. Because he was basically like Rand's adoptive Aiel father. And I toyed with putting Gaul on the list here.
I mean, Gaul would have been a fun one.
But
Gaul would have been fun.
I did not, but he's another character I really like, another Aielman who's fantastic throughout the entire series. I think from book 2.
He is great.
But I was like him, Rhuarc, and now that I'm saying it, I kind of wish I put him on there instead of Uno, but still, it's all good. I like Uno too. I like Gaul a lot. We'll go on. Who is your number 1, Mike?
Okay, so I'm going to actually give people a few that I really had to fight with, like, for this number 1, either for the number 1 spot, so for instance, Cat Swain.
Okay.
It was between her and the person I ended up choosing because I've always been really interested with Cat Swain, and her stories would have been awesome.
Mm.
And she's someone, like, we get, pieces of, but nothing substantial. Just the other people I just want to shout out would be Demandred. Any of the Forsaken, really, would have been neat, again, to see, like I said before, their perspectives. Talmans?
Talmanis?
Yeah, Talmanis. Like, Matt's sidekick. But ultimately, and the one that I also was fighting for the number 1 spot, Tam Othor.
Good old
Tam.
Tam.
I did not end up going with, but I struggled a lot with this one. I ultimately ended up choosing Lanfear.
Oh, okay.
I know, it was between her, Cat Swain, and Tam Othor, so it was really, like, a tough decision for me, and honestly, I probably would have picked, if I were to go back, like you said, and I would have removed Asmodene for one of them. Probably Cat Swain. But Lanfear, I chose her because she is somebody who is involved with Rand al'Thor, but not just Rand al'Thor, also Lews Therin Telamon. And we get these bits and pieces and snippets in dialogue of why she is the way she is and why she feels this way. And it would have been so much more powerful if we got these perspective pieces from her, like her watching Rand as he's sleeping and some thought process going through her head. So you can get to the point that this woman is legit a stalker and obsessed with him. And then we can start to understand why she's obsessed with him. What was it that caused this obsession to start? And then even like maybe it was even like her thinking back to being stuck in the Boar and trapped there, and all she could do is think about, or hold on to like the darkness she had taken hold of, and maybe her love and the promises made about her and Lews the dragon, their eventual relationship, which maybe was why she joined Outside of Power as well. But it would have been so much more interesting because she is such an important character, and yet we never really see the full scope of the things that she did. We only get like bits and pieces and ideas. Oh, maybe she sent some of her Trollocs in to save Rand. Why would she do that? I think there was so much untapped potential with her. And again, there's like a million characters in this book series, so it's kind of hard. But for someone who is supposed to be such a big, fearful thing, according to Moraine, I never felt the full impact of her power in the book series. Whereas like some of the other Forsaken, I felt more scared of them than I did of her. Even though they were scared of her, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted more from her, and I just never got that, so...
I like your choice of Lanfear there, and like this is a good time to like do a quick plug for the Wheel of Time Companion, which is basically a Wheel of Time encyclopedia, which has a lot of backstory on Mirren and her turning to the dark, and just some more information on Lanfear. But again, this is like a book that's aside from the main series. Having more of that into the actual series would have been a lot more enlightening for Lanfear's like thought process and everything. And the thing that's always intrigued me about Lanfear is exactly what you just said. Was it her that sent some Trollocs in to save Rand? Why would she do that? Like, what was actually going on? Like, is she going against the Dark One? Is she going against the Light? Like, where does she stand? Does she just stand for herself? And getting more thought process into, like, her actions would have been really enjoyable. I mean, you get a little bit of her, but very little. And I feel like more is always better. So I think that getting more Lanfear would have been really cool. So I think I'm going to do the same thing you just said there. As far as like some characters you toyed with, like I said, I toyed with Gaul. Probably should have put Gaul on this list as opposed to Uno. You named Tam al'Thor already. Tam is solid, and he's described that way in the book a lot, and I like him a lot. I didn't
even touch your number one choice.
You mentioned my number one choice, actually. And my number one choice is Talmanas de Lavindi.
Hey, I should have just noticed the pattern.
Which, actually, he is the entire reason I wanted to do this episode, because I'm reading, like I said, I'm rereading Wheel of Time right now. I'm in Memory of Light. Talmanas finally gets some chapters, and I love Talmanas so much. He's one of my favorite characters. And that is including the main ones. I like Talmanas that much, where he's above a lot of the main characters for me. But what I like about Talmanas so much is like how he goes from being this Cairhienin noble to being like dressing down basically and fighting with the military. Because like in Cairhien, you know how they wear like the stripes to indicate their ranks and everything like that. Talmanas doesn't wear stripes. Talmanas shaves his head like the front of his head like a common soldier, powders it, and wears plain clothes into battle. So he kind of like goes out there like fighting with the people, like kind of like a noble of the people in a way. Then when he joins up with Mat and the Band of the Red Hand, he's like constantly like laughing behind his eyes and like laughing on the inside. And everyone's like, "Oh, Talmanas, you have no sense of humor." When he's just like constantly making jokes and constantly like subtly making these digs at people and everything. Like, I like him a lot as far as like just for that portion of him. Like the Cairhienin subtlety of his humor is very funny to me. But I also really like how he shows like his true colors, like his nobility, in that he won't just leave the civilians of Caemlyn to die by these Trollocs. He's like, you know what, where no one else is going in there, come on, we're going for it. Oh, there's some Myrddraal up ahead of me. Oh, I'm already nicked by your blade. I'm dying anyway. And he just goes ham and kills a Myrddraal one-on-one in combat. And earns the Borderlander titles of, you know, of killing a Myrddraal and then killing a Myrddraal by himself. I forget the exact name of it there, but he's also in charge of the dragons, which are really cool. I kind of picture them basically as like almost modern weapons in this age.
It makes me think of in Mulan, you know, where literally the dragon firework that shoots out and blows up the mountain.
Yeah, and so
kind of pictured like that except mounted.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like a mortar as the way that I'm kind of picturing it, and it's so crazy to me, like how like they're like developing all this technology like throughout the series. Like they're building a car throughout the entire series at the school outside of Cairhien and everything. But getting back to Talmanas, I just enjoy all of that stuff about him. I think he's a very enjoyable character. He gets his due towards the end of Memory of Light, throughout Memory of Light, where you get more time with him, as well as some of him in The Gathering Storm, I think. But he's still a very underrepresented character, and someone who I feel like definitely deserves a good fan base.
I'd agree. He is a joy to read and to really start to understand him and how he's changed. I love that you brought that up. I think that's such a good point. Yeah. I mean, I think we had a pretty good list. I like that we kind of went at it in different ways. You definitely went based off of like the characters' personalities, whereas I went more like to the lore and like their kind of adding to their addition to the story, and like, you know, we kind of attacked it in two different directions, so that was kind of fun. It also worked out that all mine were channelers and all yours weren't.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about Cadsuane, though, like I feel the same way like I do about her as I do about Varen, in that I would love a prequel book focusing on the adventures of Cadsuane.
That would be awesome.
She's not necessarily my favorite character. I think she's a little hoity-toity for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's so interesting.
And it would be so cool to figure out why.
Yeah.
She's revered, and she seems like she's so powerful, and she's so knowledgeable, and it's like, well, why? What happened in your life that's caused you to be this way? Because it seems like she's almost invincible and all.
Right.
Yada, like, you know?
Like, she's the standard all other Aes Sedai are held up to as far as power level goes. And so, it's like, oh, you're not even really that powerful when you think about, like, the rest of the channelers that we have here. But definitely a character with a cool backstory that probably should be told.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to end it here. And those are mine and Mike's 5 characters each that we enjoyed. All right. So anything else you want to talk about, Mike, before we get out of here?
No, but if they have a different list or people we missed that they're like, oh, yeah, you guys should have thought about this person, like, please feel free to reach at us on our socials and let us know.
All right. Well, with that said, this is 2 Nerds signing off. Goodbye.
See ya.